You're LeBron James. You came into the league wearing number 23. Now, eventually, it was to be the GOAT and to be supplanted.
Think about the greatest player of all time, it's still LeBron James in my eyes.
The LeBron versus Jordan debate has been beaten to death for decades now. But every once in a while, someone drops a truth bomb that opens up a new dimension to the conversation. Stephen A. Smith, with Kendrick Perkins backing him up, has taken it there. The discussion is no longer just about rings, points, or MVPs. It is now about legacy, humility, and whether LeBron James ever truly wanted to learn from the ones who paved the way for him. According to Stephen A., LeBron had every opportunity to learn from the greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan, but chose to forge a solo path instead. Was it pride? Was it a desire to create his own identity? Or was it simply a missed opportunity that shaped how we view his legacy today? In today's episode of NBA Showdown, we break down the cold truth in 7 sections. If you think you know this story, think again. Stick around till the end and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you love raw, unfiltered NBA takes. When LeBron James entered the league, he did not just walk into the NBA as a highly touted prospect. He arrived carrying a legacy on his back. By choosing to wear the number 23, the number immortalized by Michael Jordan, he did more than show admiration. He accepted a direct comparison before playing a single NBA game. That decision was bold, ambitious, and carried with it a weight that few understood. Stephen A. brings attention to the symbolism behind that number and what it meant for someone to take on that jersey in a post-Jordan era. It was a statement that said LeBron was ready to not just follow in the footsteps of Jordan, but eventually replace him at the mountaintop. But here's where the contradiction lies. If you are going to declare yourself the heir to the throne by taking on the symbolic number, shouldn't you also be willing to learn from the king who wore it before you? That's the issue. LeBron's actions early on suggested that he was chasing Jordan, not walking beside his influence. Rather than seeking Jordan's insight, mentorship, or wisdom, he set out to dethrone him without so much as a conversation. Wearing 23 was a signal to the world, but what followed showed a man who was not interested in hearing from the one who defined that number. And that contradiction is where the rift between the two legends started.
You're LeBron James. You came into the league wearing number 23. Now, eventually, it was to be the GOAT and to be supplanted.
Kendrick Perkins explains it plainly. The endless debate between LeBron James and Michael Jordan was never something organically birthed by fans or media alone. It was largely instigated by LeBron himself. From calling himself the greatest of all time in a documentary to repeatedly engaging in narratives that put him head-to-head with Jordan, LeBron poured gasoline on a fire that he now seems frustrated by. That self-inflicted rivalry created expectations that never allowed him to exist outside the shadow of Jordan. Instead of building his own lane, LeBron willingly entered a lane that already had an undisputed king. The irony here is powerful. If LeBron had taken a different path, one of respect, reverence, and genuine curiosity about what made Jordan the greatest, this entire dynamic could have been different. But he chose comparison over collaboration. He created a storm and now seems surprised that he's being judged by the standard he willingly chose to challenge. That is not media manipulation. That is not unfair judgment. That is self-inflicted narrative pressure. And Kendrick Perkins makes it clear that the GOAT war between LeBron and Jordan didn't start from analysts or fans. It started from LeBron, and once he claimed that crown for himself, there was no turning back.
And a lot of this, for his Jordan and Bron relationship, is self-inflicted by LeBron.
For Kendrick Perkins, the exact moment the relationship between Jordan and LeBron became strained was when LeBron proclaimed himself the greatest of all time. That moment wasn't just a quote for the cameras. It was a declaration that echoed around the league. It didn't sit right with many veterans, legends, and especially with the man many consider the actual GOAT, Michael Jordan. This wasn't about disrespect. This was about bypassing tradition. In NBA culture, greatness is recognized by others, not self-declared. Michael Jordan never had to say he was the greatest. Kobe Bryant never said it. Neither did Tim Duncan or Bill Russell. Their legacies were solidified by performance and confirmed by their peers. LeBron broke that unwritten rule. When he called himself the greatest, he skipped the process of generational recognition. That changed everything. That statement likely closed doors, not just with Jordan, but with other greats who expected him to show humility before seeking the crown. It was not a bridge built, it was a bridge burned. And while Kendrick Perkins still believes LeBron is the greatest in his eyes, he admits that those words had consequences. They pushed Jordan further away and reinforced the idea that LeBron was trying to write history instead of letting history write him.
See, when Bron self-proclaimed himself as the GOAT, I think right there was the starting point.
Stephen A. Smith makes it very clear that Michael Jordan does not hate LeBron James. There is no active feud, there is no secret animosity, but what there is distance. There is no relationship, no mentorship, no brotherhood. And that lack of connection is not accidental. It stems from something deeper than rivalry. It stems from a lack of effort to connect on LeBron's part. Jordan is enjoying life. He is not in need of publicity, validation, or social media buzz. But he also has the wisdom and knowledge that LeBron never tried to access. That's what Stephen A. finds curious. Why didn't LeBron reach out? Why didn't he take the chance to absorb from the very man whose path he claimed to be following? It is not about blame. It is about missed opportunity. LeBron's decision to go it alone might have been rooted in pride or independence, but it came at the cost of brotherhood with the legend himself. That silence between them speaks louder than any stat line. In a league built on legacy and passing the torch from Jordan to LeBron was never passed. And that, according to Stephen A., was never about hate. It was about a door that was never knocked on.
Jordan's living his best life, and they're not enemies. But it's not about whether or not or they have a relationship or not. The issue is why.
Kendrick Perkins offers a fair perspective in this debate by admitting that greatness can often be subjective. For him personally, LeBron James is the greatest player of all time, but he also acknowledges that this is not a universal truth. Some fans will always pick Michael Jordan. Others might say Kobe Bryant. And in many cases, it comes down to who people grew up watching, who inspired them emotionally, or whose game connects with their values. But here's the core issue. Personal preference does not rewrite basketball history. The game has objective markers for greatness: rings, clutch moments, defensive dominance, killer instinct, and competitive fire. LeBron excels in many of these areas, but Michael Jordan perfected them. What Kendrick is pointing to is an emotional truth, not a historical one. And even he seems to understand that when LeBron proclaimed himself the GOAT, it rubbed people the wrong way because it dismissed the decades of greatness that came before him. The reason Jordan stands above the rest is because he let others decide his greatness. He never had to say it. It was felt. That's the difference. When LeBron declared it himself, it made the debate more divisive instead of inspiring unity around his legacy. By not seeking wisdom from legends like Jordan, LeBron distanced himself from a heritage he could have carried with pride. Instead, he tried to rewrite the heritage, and that is why even personal preferences, as valid as they are, cannot erase the fact that LeBron walked away from the opportunity to truly elevate himself by learning from those who came before.
Think about the greatest player of all time, it's still LeBron James in my eyes. The debate all day, some people could go with Jordan, some people could go with Bron. Like I told Molly and Stephen A. Before, it's your preference.
Stephen A. Smith makes perhaps the most cutting observation in the entire discussion when he reflects on LeBron's refusal to accept mentorship early in his career. As a young phenom with unlimited potential, LeBron had access to basketball royalty. He could have asked questions. He could have picked brains. He could have studied the journey of those who had already achieved what he was chasing. But instead, he isolated himself from that mentorship process. When players like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Kobe Bryant, and of course Michael Jordan were available to offer guidance, LeBron chose a different route. He chose independence over instruction. And that choice came with a price. It cost him insight into how to handle the pressure of championships, how to lead under fire, how to stay mentally bulletproof during the hardest parts of the journey. When Stephen A. points this out, it becomes clear that LeBron's struggle to win early in his career was not just about teammates or roster depth, it was also about his refusal to learn from history. Greatness is not just talent, it is wisdom. It is knowledge passed down from those who walked through the fire and emerged with rings on their fingers and lessons in their minds. LeBron had every chance to get those lessons. But as Stephen A. puts it, he did not appear interested. He wanted to create his own formula. And while he has found success, the full greatness he could have reached might have only been possible through humility. Without that humility, he never stood shoulder to shoulder with the greats. He stood near them, but never beside them.
The opportunities that you had to be a student and to learn and to grow from those who had already done it was something that you didn't appear interested in doing.
Stephen A. goes deeper into LeBron's early years and reveals something critical. When LeBron first entered the league, he was praised as the next big thing. The media crowned him the chosen one. But what followed was a long stretch of struggle and failure to win. He made the playoffs, he had stats, but he could not close. He could not finish the job. And eventually, he left Cleveland in search of a formula to win. According to Stephen A., those early struggles were not just because of roster limitations or front office mistakes. They were the result of LeBron refusing to lean on those who had already been through the war. Had he embraced the advice of champions like Jordan or even his peers who understood the grind of the postseason, he might have won earlier. Instead, he chose the hard route. And what makes it worse is that the basketball world was willing to help him. There was no lack of support or mentorship available. There was only a lack of willingness to accept it. LeBron believed he could do it his way, and while he did eventually win, the journey was unnecessarily long. It took heartbreaks, relocations, and major shifts in basketball culture just to get him there. The missed opportunity to learn from Jordan was not just symbolic, it had real consequences. It delayed his legacy. It forced him to reinvent a wheel that was already perfected. And now, when people compare him to Jordan, they see the gap in mental dominance and championship efficiency. That gap was created in those early years when LeBron could have listened and learned but chose silence instead. It was not about capability, it was about choice.
And in those early years, when you had proclaimed yourself to embrace these challenges, but then you couldn't win before departing Cleveland,
the story of LeBron James will always be one of greatness, endurance, and dominance. He is an all-time legend. No one can argue that. But when we look at why he is not widely seen as the greatest of all time, the answer goes beyond stats or championships. It comes down to choices. LeBron had every opportunity to learn from Michael Jordan, to understand the mentality that defined a generation, and to absorb the wisdom of the man whose legacy he openly chased. But instead of reaching out, he isolated himself. He made the GOAT conversation a one-sided pursuit. He wore the jersey, made the comparisons, and declared himself king, but never humbled himself enough to sit at the table with the kings who came before. And that decision shaped his entire legacy. Greatness is not just what you achieve, it is also about how you respect what came before. LeBron may have all the records in the world, but the bond with basketball royalty was something he chose not to build. And that is why, no matter how many years he plays, some doors will remain closed, because he never knocked.